Black history is not just for black people. Listen, I don't care what you've been told or how you've been deceived, but black history isn't just for black people. Hey, how you doing? My name is Freddie Taylor. I'm the CEO and founder of Urban Intellectuals. Black history made easy is what we do, but we don't make black history just for black people. We make black history for people that are interested in the total story of history of what has transpired on this earth. Listen, I don't know if you are aware or not, but the entire story of history isn't being told, particularly here in the West. I'm in the United States. I'm in the Chicagoland area. I've matriculated through this educational system from elementary school, middle school, high school to college, undergrad, grad school, and I've been around the block, so much so I have children now that have matriculated through this school and become adults as well. And I can tell you unequivocally that the history that's being taught in the school system isn't the total picture. And what's being left out of the story is the contributions of Black and African people. We're trying to fill it in during Black History Month, which is coming up here in a moment. But even during that conversation, you're talking about the same 8 to 12 people each and every year. And I know this is a fact because 40 years ago, when I was in elementary school, they were talking about the same 8 to 12 people. When my children went to school in the 2000s, they were talking about the same 8 to 12 people. If you open up the discussion today, we're talking about the same 8 to 12 people, maybe 15 to 18 in a more progressive district. But my point is there's tens of thousands of years of Black history on this planet, Black and African history on this planet that's being ignored for these same stereotypical storylines that are being told that don't feed the soul, that don't inspire people, that don't tell the story of Black and African contribution to humanity, right? So when we're talking about Black history, we're not just talking to Black people, we're talking to the world because the world has been miseducated about Black and African contribution to the humanity. At Urban Intellectuals, again, we talk a lot about Black history. We focus on the Black community, but a good percentage of our purchasers are white, are non-Black buyers. And when we have conversations with them, I'm talking about the 12 to 15% range of our customers, right? Over 200,000 customers that we've serviced all around the globe, 64 countries, 500,000 decks of our flashcards have been sold all over the world, all 50 states, 64 countries internationally. And what we get from people that purchase that are outside the spectrum of the Black and African community is this information isn't being taught in the schools. This information isn't readily available. And I don't know who's trustworthy enough to turn to. I found your organization. I like what y'all are doing and it's able to fill in the gaps for me, but not only me, because what we digged in a little bit deeper and found out that parents and grandparents are coming to us. White parents and grandparents or non-Black parents and grandparents are coming to us because they have some sort of mixed African child that is mixed with Black and African blood in them, and they don't know how to teach them, what to teach them, where to teach them, and they feel like it's important enough that they need to know their history and their culture. So shout out to these parents that are going out of their way to ensuring that these young people understand their history and their culture and they don't become detached from Black and African people around the world. Because education and insight breeds familiarity and it breeds respect. This is why I often say that Black and African history is not just for Black and African people, it's for everyone because everyone is encountering Africans in the diaspora around the world. And if you have these jaded, stereotypical points of view of who Black and African people have been, then you're going to have a jaded viewpoint when you see me walking down the street near your neighborhood or in your downtown district, just minding my business, going about it like any normal person would do. But if your history, your understanding of what has happened and transpired on the planet includes Black and African people, then you just see another worthy individual, worthy of your respect and your time, as long as they show it to you, right? That's what we're talking about. Just an opportunity. Black people are just looking for an opportunity to blend in and go along with our daily lives. But because so many different ethnicities have been miseducated about who we have been, I thought it was just like the white community, but it's not. It's the Mexican community, it's the Latin community, it's the Asian community, it's the Indian community. Hell, sometimes it's our community, right? It's the Black and African community that's been miseducated because propaganda is a hell of a machine and it's been weighing on all of us. So I love to shout out these parents that are that have mixed children, that are going out of their way, that engage urban intellectuals to try to find quality Black history and culture that they can use to pour into their young people. And shout out to those parents that are inside of our Sankofa Club and buy our Sankofa tools that are all European, that don't have any mixed children, but they feel like it's important enough that their children need to know the history and culture and the contributions to humanity Black and African people have made. So they go out of their way to ensure, by joining us, they ensure that their young people gets this understanding. So kudos to them, because they recognize that the educational system is eliminating this conversation. Now, we already know who's coming to office here in the new year and how he feels about Black and African people on this planet. And he's already talked about taking out the critical race theory and these conversations that add context to situations, right? Not banning race conversations. You know what the DeSantis, or I call him the devil, is doing in Florida, revoking Black history. We're expecting much more of this from Trump. And this is an important point, not that the Western educational system was including a lot of useful information about Black history and culture anyway, right? It's not like it was actually there anyway, which is why the need for urban intellectuals to make sure that we're pouring not only into our young people, but we're pouring into the world about the global contributions of Black and African people. I have on a shirt that says STEM is the blackest thing ever. What does that mean? Because STEM was brought to the world, discovered by the world by Black folks, right? You talk about, the father of medicine being the father of, I forgot who y'all even talk about, the Greek philosopher or the Greek medicine man that talks about the father of medicine, whoever that is, right? Somebody drop it down in the comments. Let me know below. But it's facetious, because Imhotep is the real father of medicine, right? And when you read Greek history, when you read them talking about it, they say this. They acknowledge learning and sitting at the feet of the Africans, sitting at the feet of the Kemetic Empire and learning about history, culture, astrology, writing, language, philosophy, religion, science. All of these things came out of the mother continent of Africa, and it birthed these other civilizations. But when we get into the Western educational system, the story changes. The hue changes, the color changes, the conversation gets different. And then they pretend that these things are normal. I'm looking for something that I want to share with y'all because it's poignant to this conversation. And you might say, well, why would somebody go out of their way to not tell the truth, right? And I got lectures on this stuff for days, right? If I'm just being totally honest with you. But let me share my screen really quick with you and share something with you. It's over here. Okay. So this is a quote. This is a quote that I love, and I love to bring it up because I feel like it's so poignant to this conversation. Here we go. It's easier if I just read it off the shirt. If there weren't a direct relationship between history and money, power, rulership, and domination, then why did the European rewrite history? This is Amos Wilson. If there wasn't a direct relationship between history and money, power, rulership, and domination, then why did the European rewrite history? Right? And the truth of the matter is there is a correlation to all of this, which is why history has been rewritten, and it's just been rewritten to neglect, to omit, to obscure the contributions of Black and African people on this planet. And we feel like it's important that our contributions are not only included, but they're elevated to the proper levels of respect that they deserve, because we feel that a lot of the undermining and the racial tension and the distrust and the angst and the concern centered around Black and African people on this planet with all people is stemming from a lack of education, about a lack of understanding about who we have been as a people on this planet. Not only behind medicine, but also behind mathematics. When you do the history, you find out the Lubombo bone came out of the southern central region of Africa 25,000 to 35,000 years ago, and it's thought to be the first known mathematical tool in existence, seeing that Black women were tracking their menstrual cycle. right? According to the moon, right? There is a scientific connection between the moon and the woman's ovulating period, right? This was discovered tens of thousands of years ago in Africa. And there's a lot of history just like that on the other side of the chasm. That's what I call slavery. That chasm that they love to bury us in as if that's our only contributions to the world. A strong back and a tough mind. Oh, those black and African people, they're tough. They survived slavery. Look at them doing so well. Turns out there's a whole lifetime, a whole century, whole millenniums of stories thousands of years before the slave trade of black excellence, African ingenuity, African civilization, African contribution to humanity, African intelligence, African astrology, African agricultural movements, governance, technology, engineering, right? All of these things are synonymous with the black and African community, but you wouldn't know that unless you dug in a little deeper. So I feel like these are some of the reasons why non-black people need to gravitate towards black history. You've been lied to as well. It's not just us. You've been miseducated. They taught Carter G. Woodson, where my man at? He back here somewhere. Carter G. Woodson, here we go. He's right behind me, right? Carter G. Woodson talked about the miseducation of the Negro. Well, the truth of the matter is this is a miseducation of the world. And it's deliberate. None of this is accidental. I just came back from the Blacksonian, right? The African American History Museum there in Washington, D.C. And propaganda is all throughout this particular building as well, because it starts in slavery. It starts in slavery. And all of our conversations about black and African people start in slavery here in the West. And it's ridiculous. The Irish don't start their history here in the shores of America. The English don't start their history here in the shores of America. The Italians don't start their history here in the shores of America. They start in the old country. And you might say, well, Freddie, that museum, that's an African American museum. They got to deal with the African Americans. But it starts in Africa. It starts in the 1400s with the Portuguese slave trade. There's no context built around that because the Portuguese slave trade took place after they broke free from the Moors in Europe. Most people don't know that the Moors are the ones that civilized Europe and brought them out of the so-called Dark Ages. Europe fell into the Dark Ages because of the disconnection from Africa and gaining the benefit of the knowledge base that was there on the continent. They fell away from the knowledge base and fell into squalor and squander. And they call it the Dark Ages to cover it up so you don't have to talk about the Moors advancing up into Europe and re-civilizing the population. Don't get mad at me. It's just history. The first universities in Europe were started by the Moors. The first libraries, the sidewalks, the sewer systems, the lighting systems. All of these things are brought courtesy of the Moors, the Northern Africans, going into this area. None of that is in the conversation. They're just talking about the Portuguese selling the Horn of Africa and starting their slave trade in 1455, building Elmina slave dungeon in 1481, and continuing this slave trade. And I tell you that you can't start the history of African Americans, so-called African Americans, in slavery, because did none of these Europeans go into Africa and steal no African Americans? They went in there and they stole the Mende. They stole the Fulani. They stole the Zulu, the Wolof, the Yoruba, the Igbo, and countless other people who have history, culture, and civilization already for tens of thousands of years. And none of this is included in this big fancy museum. And it's just going to continue to whitewash the history so that people like you and I, that melanated or non-melanated or not as melanated people as well, are being misdirected about the history of black and African people on this planet. Not to mention all the countless benefits to the world during that period of genocide, right? It's not no slave trade. There's a slave genocide that happened. The worst Holocaust of Africans that have ever happened on the planet for centuries. But even during that period, the innovation, the contribution to the country, to the humanity that was going out is ignored. The things that we've done over the last several hundred years here in this country has been ignored. Around the globe, it's been ignored, ostracized, marginalized, written off, and everyone else is given credit. And then you wonder why young people grow up to be older people and they despise Black and African people because the media angle and the conversation from the educational community is these people are worthless. These people are leeches. These people don't give anything, no benefit to humanity or people ever. If that was my perspective, then I can understand it. But if that was a true perspective, then I can understand it. But it's a false narrative. And we have to work to educate ourselves about the proper contributions of Black and African people to humanity. So I don't just talk about Black history for the sake of Black history. I don't just talk about Black history to empower Black people. I talk about Black history to change the world because it's the greatest motivational story never told. Not only do Black people not know it, white people, Asian people, Mexican people, Latin people, most people aren't aware of the breadth of beautiful Black history and contributions to humanity that have been made. So our company welcomes all learners. This isn't an organization just for Black people. This is an organization to educate the world about the contributions of Black and African people to humanity. We're peeling back the covers. We're shining a light on the positive things that we have done in this community to inspire and motivate our young people, but to inspire and motivate the world. The world needs to know these things so that when they encounter Black and African people, all the negative stereotypes aren't the only things that pop into their mind. Run, flight, danger. This is danger. Look at all that melanated skin. It's beautiful, but I'm afraid of them. But you start to fill in your history and your culture. You start to understand that Black people have an important part that we've played in history, not just strong backs, right? Brilliant minds, great intellectual prowess, a long existence as humans on this planet, and contributions to humanity is beautiful. But I think that these things, the non-melanated or non-Black and non-African people, understanding more Black history and culture just brings the world together because that's what education does. It makes you a different person. If you stay in your little bubbles of white supremacy, if you stay in your little bubbles of ignorance when it comes to Black and African contributions to humanity, then it's possible you can stay in your racist bubble. It's possible you can see fear when you see individuals that look different from you, rather than seeing opportunity. Somebody that can bring a fresh perspective to your life, to your business, to your workplace. To see an ally from a different community that might expose you to something that you've never seen before. So kudos to all you parents, all you grandparents that are saying, my young people need to know about the contributions about Black and African people because I don't want them to be afraid of Black and African people. And there's no need to be afraid if you're properly educated. The people that are afraid, the bigots, the racists that are out there are in their little tight little bubbles of people that are just like them, they only talk to one another and they think everybody else that's different from them is evil. The only way you can break down the ignorance is with education, but you need an open mind. So shout out to all of you who have considered learning more about Black and African history, that are bringing that into your lives and sharing it with your young people. Hey, we're not going nowhere as an organization. We're going to be here, continue to make products and services and create opportunities for everyone to learn the glorious contributions of Black and African people to humanity. I want to thank you for listening to this much of my conversation centered around why I think it's important that non-Black people understand the history and the culture of the contributions that Black and African people have made to humanity. It's a great conversation. It's one that I hope to continue down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know some of the points that I missed on the additional benefits. I got a long laundry list, but I decided I was going to just rock off the top of the head and dive into this from the heart, right? Because I get an opportunity to speak to these individuals that appreciate the work that we're doing, that's appreciating the tools that we're putting together. From the flashcards to the games and making it fun and entertaining to learn Black history and culture. From our Sankofa Club, where we're teaching live Black history classes to children, to our Sankofa Circle, where we're teaching live Black history to adults, to our Sankofa Experiences, where we're taking people on Black history travel experiences throughout the African diaspora, including the continent and beyond, to see the history up close and personal for ourselves. We can't have a better society in this world if we continue to be diligent about learning about people that are different than us. It's okay. It's okay to learn and expand your understanding. It's okay to be exposed to new things and new ideas. It's okay to become comfortable with a different type of people that you might not normally be around. But the more you learn about their history and their culture, their language, their civilization, the more they will endear, you will be endeared by them. And I can't tell you how many times I get to travel. I'm fortunate enough to travel pretty regularly. When I'm in a different country, especially if I'm trying to learn the language, if I'm trying to pick it up and say hello and thank you and the kindness in the words, and no matter what country I'm in, those people's eyes light up because they see you making an effort. You're trying. You're not just coming over here being a damn American. Oh, you need to speak American. Why ain't you speaking American? All that ignorance, right? We come humble. We come ready to learn. We come to try to absorb their history, their culture, and learn and be respectful. And I think like that is the genesis of bringing our communities together. Let's be respectful. You know what's respectful inside of the educational system, including somebody in their history and their culture, into the human family. Black and African people are ostracized in the white and Europeanized media. We're seen as the devil. We're seen as evil. We're seen as the problem, when nothing could be further from the truth in all of that. And our contributions to the world have been significant, and they will continue to be that because that's who we've been on this planet ever since we got here. I want to invite you to join Urban Intellectuals. You can go to urbanintellectuals.com to learn more about everything that we do. But we have products, we have memberships for children and adults where we teach live Black history classes, and we have Black history travel excursions. All right, actually travel experiences through our Sankofa experiences where we take people to Africa and beyond to learn and see the history up close and personal. Soon we'll be doing Black history tours in and around the country of the United States, maybe even Canada and some other places as well. So we're super excited about all of that and what's to come. But shout out to everybody who take a moment to listen to this, take a moment to dive into this conversation. Let me know your thoughts on Black and African contributions to humanity, but where is this gap? How is it being left out of the educational system? What do you think about my idea about the more you know about Black history and culture, the more you endear those people to you, and it's easier to communicate with them, work with them, and build and grow as well. So until next time, good people, you know what it is. Love, peace, and power to the people.